Okay, we'll go ahead and get started today. Hope you all are well. Good to see you. Good to see those cameras up. If you don't have your camera up, I'd prefer that you get it up so I could just see that you're out there and that you're engaged, and we're going to have a good time today. So let me first, we are recording this session, so if there's something you miss along the way and you don't want to ask a question or whatever, or you've got a friend, a fellow warrior who couldn't make it on here today, they can go back and watch this. Or if you want to watch it later to review, because we're going to do a lot of review today, you can do that as well. So up on my screen right now is our map check. Big day, Wednesday is our next exam. We'll talk a lot about that today. And then beyond Wednesday, we'll have an overview this time next week on Chapter 8. But beyond that, I haven't really decided on what we're going to do. I do know that 2 weeks from today, so that'd be on the 13th here, we don't have class because we'll all have that spring break, which I'm sure that we're all looking forward to. Okay, here's what we're going to do today. Spend some time up front talking about exam 2 in terms of what's on it, the format, how we're going to do it, and then we'll get into the content and a little bit on how to prep. Once we're done with that, any questions that you might have on any of that, and then we'll play some Kahoot together today. All right, so let's get rid of this slide presentation. And let me bring up another one. All right, so this is on Canvas right now. I think I made some changes, but just a few, so I'll post this updated version to Canvas, but there's a version of this on Canvas right now. So the big thing is for exam 2, the content that we're going to cover that'll be on the exam is chapters 4 through 7. That's marketing, operations, sourcing, and logistics. And if you remember how we went over it, we went a little bit out of order. We went marketing, and then I think we took our winter break, and then we came back, and then we did sourcing because I thought we were going to be able to go to York Corrugating, and I was trying to line that up. And then somewhere in there, we went to an online format. We continued with operations, and then we just did logistics last week. So what you want to reference is all the class overviews that we've done, all the group exercises and projects that you all have done together, and any videos that I've put out, specifically the 2 on operations. That's product lifecycle and operations layouts. So here's what exam 2 is how it's going to be structured. You're going to have 15 questions of multiple choice. They'll be worth 2 points apiece. You'll have a short essay that'll be worth 15 points, and you'll have a long essay that'll be worth 30. Short essay, I believe I give you 2 choices. You pick one of 2. You don't have to do 2, please don't. And then the long essay, I believe it's 3. You pick one of 3. Again, please don't do 3 or 2 or anything like that. Okay, so I'm going to go through this, and then I'm going to pause and get your questions because this is new territory for us, and I want you to feel comfortable on what we're walking into on Wednesday. And if you're not comfortable with that, then I want to get you as comfortable as we can. So few things up front. This will be an individual exam. This will be open book and open notes. Okay. And I just have a sub bullet there that please be mindful of time. All right. The exam will be available at 2:50 p.m. on the Canvas assignments section, and it'll close at 4:50 p.m. So you have between 2:50 and 4:50. You don't have to begin right at 2:50. You can begin whenever you want to, but you've got until 4:50 to have that uploaded. Okay. So what I'm getting at is if you're heavily reliant on your notes and the book and you're going through stuff looking for answers, I worry that you're going to run out of time. Okay. So just think about that. All right. Please do your own work. So you're going to be typing stuff into an exam format and sending it back. Obviously, cutting and pasting is not allowed. So if you're going to a website or you're going to the text or you're going somewhere else and you're cutting something out of there and pasting it into an exam, that's not allowed. You are going to submit these on Canvas, and we have the ability to validate and verify and take a look at plagiarism. So just be mindful of that. Do what you normally would do in the classroom, which is put things into your own words and use your expertise. And then the last thing is I'll be standing by on Zoom to answer any questions. Now, when the assignment appears in Canvas at 2:50 tomorrow, you'll have the packet that I'm about to show you. Okay, so you'll see what it looks like today. And then you'll have the Zoom instructions. So if you're moving along in the exam and you don't understand something, and you know my policy on questions, the second best answer I can give you is I can't help you. But I usually do better than that. So if you have any sort of question, if something doesn't make sense or what we're looking for, anything like that, you dial into those Zoom instructions that are there, and I'll be standing by in that room. Okay, for the entire time from 2:50 until 4:50. Okay. So let me show you. Okay, so when you go into Canvas tomorrow and you pull down the exam packet, it's going to look like this. Okay, it's going to have this dude right here. I have this in blue because this is just an example, and I'll post this to Canvas after we're done today. All right, so you're going to scroll down in the packet. It's going to have these instructions right here up front. It's going to have the point breakdown. None of this is going to change between now and Wednesday. Okay. So if you want to look at this when I posted at Canvas today and you're like, okay, I've got that part out of the way, I don't need to reread it again, that makes sense. It's all up to you. All right. You're going to scroll on down. You're going to go to the multiple choice. Now, the first question is, how do I annotate my answers on multiple choice? Well, let me zoom this so you can see it better on the screen. Okay, so you have three options. You can highlight your answer, okay, by clicking on it, and then you have to go up here and highlight like you normally would. If you're not comfortable with doing that, then you could bold your answer, okay, meaning that you click on it and you go up here and you hit bold. If you're not comfortable doing that, then you can just type in my answer next to the answer that you choose. Okay, so I'm giving you three options. You don't have to use all three. You just pick one to annotate in your packet what answer you want. Okay, now and I hate if it's like, no kidding, this is obvious, but you're going to download this packet and then you're going to make changes to it and then you're going to upload it again. So you might want to save as you go so you don't lose anything. That's up to you. Okay. And obviously choose the best answer for each of the following. You might have more than one right answer. Choose the best answer. Same rules apply as always. Next, you're going to scroll down to the short essay section. Write a short essay question on one of the following. These will be filled in. And you're going to type your essay, not type USA. I'm glad I'm doing this. Not necessarily in front of you. I apologize for that. Type your essay below the line. So you're going to go down here and type away. Okay. Now, what you might want to do, especially for the longer essay, is you might want to have some scrap sheet of paper next to you. Just before you get in the car and start speeding at 60 miles an hour, just organize your thoughts over here a little bit. and then come back in here and type away. All right. I try to give you as much space as you want. So, you know, there's like a page and a half. But if you're like, I really feel I need to write more than that on the short essay, then go ahead. You don't have to fill the page and a half. You could go longer than a page and a half. It's all up to you. But somewhere down the road, you have some long essays you've got to do. Again, you have some instructions. And on this one, you know, I went ahead and I'm putting your choices on the next sheet. So I don't really care how you do this. So for example, if you say, all right, I looked at these three choices and I like choice number 3, I don't care if you delete 1 and 2, just get them out of the way so that at the top of your page, you can continue to, you know, as you're writing, you can continue to look up at choice number 3 and, okay, am I answering that question the best that I can? That if that works for you, that's fine. Okay. And then essentially, you know, you write as much as you feel you need to write to sufficiently answer that question. You have virtually unlimited space in here. Okay. So once you're done with all that and you're happy with this, you save it, you send it back in, obviously within the time limit. At this point, I'm going to stop the share and just see if there's any questions on what I've covered so far, big or small. Yeah, so the question is, Zoom isn't letting anyone else join this meeting, and we've had that problem before. I do not know why that is. I do not know. I've checked my settings. Let me just go down here and see if I'm accidentally hit something. So, I mean, I really don't know how to fix that. I know that there's some individuals who've had problems before, and I think it's a problem beyond me. So, other questions on anything I've covered in terms of how the exam's going to go? Okay. All right. If that's nothing heard, then we'll go on to back over here. And at this point, I'm going to continue through the highlight reel. Okay. So going back to chapter 4, and I just want to say these are highlights. These aren't the only things that are going to be on the exam, but these are things that I felt worthy of highlighting. I'll just put it that way. Okay. The first is my attempt to recreate our overview on marketing and distribution channels. Okay. And so the time that we did this, I did it on the board by hand. I thought about what we talked about that day, and I think this is, excuse me, really not all of it, but the core part of it. So when we talk about distribution, we talk about really 2 big types. That's over here on the left. We could go direct from a manufacturer or supplier to a customer. And a best example I can give of that is a farmer's market kind of thing where they're actually growing on the property and you go there as the customer and you buy a pumpkin or you buy strawberries or whatever. Or indirect, which is everything but direct. With indirect, we have intermediaries, 2 primary types of intermediaries. We could have a wholesaler or we could have a distributor. A wholesaler is different than a distributor. They're not the same. And I tried to represent that with this big fatter arrow here that that says bulk next to it. Now, what that means is a wholesaler buys in bulk. And based on demand, You see this pipe right here from a wholesaler to retailer is not the same as from the manufacturer to the wholesaler. And that's because the wholesaler buys in bulk and then kind of meters out to retailers as demand occurs. A distributor is kind of the opposite. So the flow from the manufacturer and the supplier is kind of at the same rate to the distributor as it is to the distributor to retail. So I think a good example of this is, let's say we have Coke machines and the distributor comes around and fills up the Coke machines, the vending machines. And probably once they're done doing that, they go back to the supplier and get what they filled up the Coke machine. So they move product here, go get it and move it here. Kind of this kind of shell game, but it's an even flow. Now, this dotted line is kind of what Amazon does. And Best Buy kind of does that. Walmart's kind of trying to do that where, and I guess with Walmart and Best Buy, it kind of is almost over here. But with Amazon, I don't know how often people do it, but in theory, you can go to the Amazon distribution center and pick something up if you want to. Most often you just, hey, just deliver it to my house. And that's this right here. But in theory, you could go by there and pick it up. So Amazon is kind of cutting out the middleman here and doesn't have a retailer. Now, another important part about this whole slide is pick a product rhetorically, but think of one in your mind. And you might have a product that's offered in retail. You might have another product that goes through a wholesaler. You might have another product that goes through a distributor. You might have another product that's direct to the customer. And so a question may be, why does one product have one type of channel and another product have another type of channel? Well, a lot of it is because how that company wants to cover the market. And that's this up here in the upper right-hand corner. So to me, I see this kind of like a dial. So if we want to flood the market and have our product available everywhere, we're going to have an intensive coverage option. We're going to crank that dial all the way up to 11 or whatever. If we want to have it some places, but not other places, we're going to kind of tone it down a little bit. Like there's this company, Buchanan, they make a lot of men's hygiene products. Buchanan is available at Walmart, or excuse me, Target, but not Walmart. And, so you kind of ask, well, why is that? Because they want to be a little selective, I think, about where their product is available. And then you have some products that you are exclusive. Those are high end, those are high premium products, and those are usually going direct. They might be custom made. So this slide, I think, is very important to understand. Again, start with left and work our way right. The types of distribution channels, big buckets, direct and indirect, direct being direct to the customer, indirect being everything else. And then from there, the channel strategy or the channel that we select in the coverage option kind of depends on what we're trying to do with the product. Now, another way we can think about this is how do we segment the market by profit and volume? So this is, again, is our marketing chapter. This slide is in the book to some degree. The big things I want you to think about is, what product would go where, okay? And when we say by profit, we're talking about profit margin per the item. So I think it was Jacob one day talked about pencils. So if I'm talking about a pencil, I'm not making a large profit margin per pencil. The whole idea is that I sell a ton of them, though, because they're needed. Maybe not a mechanical pencil. Jacob mentioned a number 2 pencil, kind of that classic pencil. So that would be down here. Okay. And the beauty with that is a lot of things kind of bundle with that in terms of a marketing, operation, and distribution strategy. We have a kind of a mass marketing strategy for that number 2 pencil. We can make that number 2 pencil to stock, and we can have that number 2 pencil everywhere. Okay, we could have it forward positioned, but most importantly, we can do indirect distribution with that all day long with wholesalers, distributors, retailers, etc. The way I like to go with this quadrant is I like to jump up here and go into this quadrant, which is essentially the opposite. High profit margin, low volume. So this is like a yacht, an Aston Martin, which is that car that James Bond drives, high-end custom built gaming computers, those types of things. And so here we can get after marketing, operations, and distribution strategies. And we see some opposites from down here that really pop out. So if you understand one of these quadrants, it's not a big leap to get the other one. Okay, these ones that are diagonally positioned. And then we move over here to the right. And the reason this is the most valuable marketed segment is because we're getting the best of both worlds. We're getting a relatively higher profit margin, and we're getting a relatively higher volume. So some examples: Apple iPhones, Dell computers. They're not, quote, low cost. We have a relatively higher profit margin, and we're selling quite a bit of them. Okay. And so we call this the hybrid quadrant. And then this quadrant down here on the lower left is really a quadrant that, for the most part, doesn't fit in with this model. As you see, I put not for profit, and that's because otherwise it doesn't really make sense to be down here. So I call it non-standard. The main focus I'd like you to focus on is, pick a product, think about that. Where does it fit? And if you're really on your game, think about 3 versions of a product and where they would fit. So for example, a high-end gaming computer would be here. A kind of run-of-the-mill gaming computer would be here. And then kind of a lower price tablet would be down here. Okay. And you could do that with shoes. You could do that with cars. You could do that with many things, clothes. You could do that with a number of products. So think about that, and think about, if you did it with clothes, how these things would change, whatever works for you that you can latch onto, and at the same time express how to do this right here. So that comes from our marketing discussion. Okay, moving on to operations. I want to highlight just 2 brief things in terms of operational layouts that I've seen kind of as points of confusion in the past. One is what the fixed layout is and what it isn't. And so here I have this image of a plane being worked on, and I'm trying to drive home the point that in a fixed layout, the product is the center of the layout itself. It's the center of attention. And so, because we can't move it around, and I guess you could argue that you can move a plane around. I've seen pictures of people moving planes around through assembly, but if we're building this over a long period of time, we're probably not moving the plane around. And so the idea here is that we bring in different capabilities to it. So we bring in the electric guys one day, maybe for a couple days. We bring in the engine guys. Maybe we bring a couple of crews together at the same time. But eventually, probably if we're going to paint this thing, that's all we've got going on, and everyone else is not there. So I want to try to head off the confusion between fixed layout and process layout. So for an example, hey, we're having a big festival. Okay, well, if you just have a bare piece of ground and you've got to do things to the bare piece of the ground, like to build a stage, put in the electricity, that might be a fixed layout. But if we have a big festival where we're talking about customers going through the festival. They could go over here to the animal tent. They could go over here to the pumpkin patch. They could go over here to the shooting range. That's a process layout. And I think Vicus said it in his discussion, because the point is that everyone could take their own route through there. In theory, there could be an infinite amount of routes through. So Brenna goes over to the petting zoo, and Nick comes over and he goes to the shooting range, and Tyler goes over to the booth where you can throw footballs and stuff and knock things down. So everybody, but the people are essentially the product in the process layout. In the fixed layout, the item itself, the layout itself, is the product. So if that doesn't click with you, you might want to keep thinking about some example that does. And if nothing does, then of course, come up on the net and ask me to go over it again. Kind of in contrast is the cellular layout. And I like to talk about the back row of Grumbacher a lot because I just kind of like it. But I think it's a brilliant example. But it's not just about sports and working out. It's about functionality. And so we can put the lacrosse team in here all at the same time. I think there's like 7 different racks, and we could get 2 people on each side. We can even triple up some people on pull-up bars in between. But the point is, we could take each one of those lacrosse players or basketball players or whoever and put them on a different route program. So I can have Riley doing pull-ups. I can have somebody else doing something else. And so that's very much like a cellular layout. Okay, so I can change up. I have a high degree of multifunctionality. And at the same time, I have a pretty high degree of efficiency, because look at that amount of floor space. There's really not that much floor space involved, but I can do an incredible amount of things. Think about if we broke this into functional machines, how much floor space we would need. We'd need a bench press area. We need a squat rack area. We'd need a pull-up bar. We'd need to break all that stuff out, and we would take up an enormous amount of space. So don't get this confused with some gyms where you have like a cardio area, and you have like a weightlifting area, and then you have a dumbbell area, and then you have maybe a yoga area. That's more like a process layout. That sounds like a grocery store or a hospital. But this power rack setup is very much like a cellular layout. So if that works for you, great. If it doesn't, then again, find something else that does, or come back to me and say that doesn't do it for me, and we'll find another way together. Moving on, we've got this confusing slide. I want to back off it and give you a simpler version of it. Okay. So supply chains under uncertainty, this is really relevant. This is what I talk about a lot in other things. But, right now we're here, okay, in terms of the world today. We've got high demand uncertainty for just about anything anymore because physical distancing and those strategies have really kind of destroyed demand patterns of the past months for you name it. And we've also got high supply uncertainty, okay, for a number of reasons. But what you want to do is know what each of these quadrants, what's involved. And then once you feel good with this slide, you can go back to this one, which is a little more complicated, which has the various strategies in here. Okay, and that's the whole point is, based on what quadrant a supply chain finds itself in, what strategies should it be taking to mitigate that uncertainty? And mitigate is another word for make it less of a big deal, kind of turn the volume down on it. Okay, so again, if this is confusing to you, I would first start with this and just kind of understand the basics here and what each one of these kind of involves on a very treetop level. And then I would dive deeper and get into this slide right here. And again, this is in your book. I've written it just a tiny bit differently because I think it's a little more easy this way. But regardless, this is a lot of folks get hung up on this uncertainty stuff. So you might want to spend some time here if that initially is confusing to you. Okay, so I've been asked this question, and unfortunately, I don't have a straight up easy answer. How do I prep for this exam? Well, you've seen the format of the exam. We're about to play some Kahoot, um, and I will post the link for Kahoot. I think that Kahoot will help you with the multiple choice, but how I would approach this again is to first, what is my reaction to these four words? A rhetorical question. So when you see these words, can you start kind of talking about marketing in terms from a technical and depth perception or perspective, not just kind of, oh yeah, what I think I know about marketing, but from what we've talked about? Can you easily start talking about that, or do you struggle a little bit, or do you run away from that? So based on your answer to that is how I would go down here. And I guess this is an all inclusive of what I would do. But first things first is I would gather and review both my notes, and then maybe if I didn't feel very confident about my notes, I would find someone that I felt had good notes and bribe them or whatever and try to get their notes and kind of see if that makes sense to me. I don't have videos on all of this. We do have videos of we have a video of logistics from class that I recorded on Zoom. We also have 2 videos on operations. If I hadn't watched those, I would be sure to do that. If I watched them before, but it was kind of fuzzy, I would watch them again. I talked about studying Kahoot, and then I would rescan the chapter, but I don't know if I'd rescan the chapter for the first thing that I did. Okay. Because I personally, I don't talk about every single thing in the chapter. Um, I try to highlight what I think is important and what I'd like you to really get a good grasp out of. So if you jump in the hat and into the chapter cold, I kind of fear that you're jumping into the haystack, and there might be something else that kind of leads you to the needles that are out there. What I didn't put down here was various notes that I posted along the way. Those are still up on Canvas, and I think I would look at those before I look at the chapter. But if you're looking at your notes from class and then you look at something that's on Canvas, both from me, and they don't seem to match up, I would go with what we talked about in class. And again, if you have any questions along the way, hey, what does this mean between now and Wednesday? Then feel free either ask a fellow warrior or email me. Doesn't matter what time it is. I'll get back to you and get you some sort of answer. Okay. Questions on any of that? Not all at once. Just the questions are raining down. Okay. Well, with that, we're going to play some Kahoot. So let me get going. Now, this is going to have to be individual. Here's what I'm going to do. Top 3 get number 1 gets 3 points, number 2 gets 2, and number 3 gets 1. This is an individual effort. In order to get points, you've got to give me your name in there that I can recognize. So Arctic Boa 34, I don't know who that is. Maybe it's Vicus, maybe it's Kevin. I can't call it. All right. So if you want to play and get credit, come up on the net with your real handle. All right. So let me get this going over here. I don't want to do that. Just give me 1 second. Okay, and I'm gonna. So you should be seeing the code in front of you. Go ahead and type that in. All right, super. All right, here we go. Okay, remember, anytime we start talking about air at all, the dollars, you can just hear the cash register ringing. From the crew to the plane to the fuel to the runway, both in terms of fixed costs, variable costs, things just go immediately like through the roof. Okay, so it's definitely the most means of most expensive means of transportation. All right, let's see how we're looking. All right, Jacob up on the board, Ashlyn up there too. All right, here we go. Read the question carefully. Okay, tough one for a lot of folks. So let's look at the alternatives. So remember, we're talking about downstream to upstream. So with bullwhip, what we've got is a change in demand. So we're not really moving anything from downstream to upstream. We have a change in what people need. Okay, kind of like, excuse me, with toilet paper and some other things that's going on right now, but we're not moving anything. Risk hedging is not moving things from downstream to upstream. Risk hedging is where we're taking our bets on where supplies might come from. Okay, so for example, if we had chosen to get products, if we choose to get products from China right now, we're definitely hedging our bets. Okay, because we might not be able to get them based based on their shutdown, things like that, labor shortages, people at home, although they might be coming out of that. And then postponement, we're not flowing products from downstream to upstream. With postponement, what we're doing is we're making generic items, and we're delaying that final decision on what those items look like until the last minute. So, for example, if you can see me holding up this cup, if I made personalized cups for people, then I might make them look like this. And then at the last minute, get orders from people like, for example, maybe somebody wants me to put this on the front. So I'd pull them out of inventory. I'd put that on the front, especially for Steven or Nick Morgan or somebody like that. And then they'd buy it that way. And maybe Shelby would want something different on the mug. Okay. But with reverse logistics, we're actually taking product back that people didn't want, either because it didn't sell or they weren't happy with it. And we're pulling it back into the process now. And like I said before, at a minimum, what we've got to do with reverse logistics is we've got to inspect the item to see if it was damaged or if we didn't produce it to specification in the first place. Okay. Any questions on this? I can't see my chat right now, so hopefully you don't have a question that's on chat. Well, trying to see it. When I do this, when I share my screen like this, I can't see my chat. All right, we'll go on. All right, big change. Got some new players up there. Owen's staying strong in the top 4. Vicus getting up there. Austin jumping out and taking a lead. All right, here we go. What is the leading strength of a process layout? Okay, think about a process layout. That's our grocery store. That's our kind of pimp my ride job shop. That's our hospital. Okay, so the leading strength is the flexibility. The efficiency is not a leading strength of a process layout, because you think about it, the sushi guy at Weiss, there's some days probably when people come in to buy groceries and no one buys sushi, but we still want to have that person there in case somebody does. So the sushi person gets paid all day and they may not do anything. It's the same thing in a job shop or a hospital. Maybe the x-ray person sits there all day and doesn't do anything because they don't have any people needing x-rays. But the minute we take that person out of there, Murphy would say that we need someone to come get x-rays. Okay? So the leading strength of the process layout is its flexibility, but we actually pay for that flexibility because we don't get the efficiency. Okay? And then postponement and customization. I mean, customization, I suppose you could say, is a good answer, but it's not the best answer. Best answer is flexibility. Bike is moving up. Steven's crawling up there. All right, here we go. Four phases of the product life cycle. Okay, so remember, and if you missed this one, you might want to go back and watch the video that I posted when we first went, quote, online. And the easiest way to think about life cycle in my mind is just like a person. A person is born, grows up, becomes mature like you all, and then eventually becomes a boomer like me and dies. These over here, these are supply chain functions. And then these over here really aren't anything. These are the flows of supply chain or value chain, but then we throw cash on there, which kind of discredits the whole answer. Okay, so in terms of product life cycle, we want to think about these things. And particularly, we looked at it in terms of operations and how much we produce. So in the birth phase, we don't produce that much. But as we go on in the product life cycle, when we're in the mature phase, we actually produce a lot. That's our highest point of production. I don't know who C Long is. I should know. I'm drawing a blank. All right. Here we go. What is the difference between purchasing and sourcing? Okay, good. Good improvement. Again, sourcing is that strategic view. Purchasing is the day-to-day. So if Maggie's in sourcing and she goes, hey, we want to go with the supplier, she probably goes in there, lands the contract, gets the supplier, and then she hands it over to me to worry about when the first truck is going to arrive and how much should be on that first truck. So I'd be like a purchasing manager in that regard, and Maggie would work in sourcing. Okay. All right. Good job. All right, Jacob and Nick moving up a little bit. All right, here we go. Okay, right place, right time, right quantity. Can't go wrong with that. Operation or logistics does not accomplish the transformation process. That is operations. Okay. Remember SIPOC, that P stands for process, that IPO stands for the transformation process. But transformation process is operations. Logistics kind of ties everything together. Ensure finished products are ready for distribution. Well, this is kind of half of what logistics does, but remember that logistics also moves raw materials into the production process. So this is kind of half of an answer. And then do everything but operations. That's not really true, although I've been places where people use logistics kind of in that context, but logistics doesn't do marketing, for example. So it doesn't do everything but operations, and it doesn't do sourcing either. Once we found a supplier, it moves things from supplier to manufacturer. Once things are done, it moves it down, but it doesn't do marketing. It doesn't do sourcing. Okay. Austin moving up. All right. Good job. Here we go. What is the weakness of a product layout? Okay, good. Not very flexible. That's right. So think about Toyota, think about Harley Davidson, think about anything where we're making the same thing over and over all day long. Toyota is probably the best example. And Kevin did a presentation on Ford F-150. So they make a truck in about, I think, something ridiculous, like 30 to 40 seconds. So the weaknesses of that is that once you've got that product layout in place, you're really not going to change it up a whole lot. You can't. You're kind of married to it. Okay. Doesn't allow for economies of distance. Well, that's kind of apples and oranges. Economies of distance is a transportation term. A product layout is an operations kind of thing. So we're kind of comparing things that shouldn't be compared. Excuse me. A product layout is very continuous. So that's not true. I mean, we can churn out those Ford F-150s all day, those Toyotas all day. And a product layout is very, very efficient. That's why we choose a product layout. When we're making the same thing over and over, we get very good at it. We don't need people that are very, very skilled, so we can keep that labor cost down, and we can pump out some serious volume. So, but the problem is, the weakness is it's not very flexible. Okay. All right, Nick moving up on the board too. All right, Joel, we'll see your name up here soon. Okay, what is postponement? Okay, very good. Exactly. Delaying, that's the whole postponement. Manufacturing function until demand is certain. So on the other screen, you saw I had one of my old fraternity jerseys up on the screen. That's kind of an example. Anything sports jerseys, fraternity jerseys, uniforms, even items that, again, this item right here that's plain, and I'm not really sure if I want to customize it. I make generic ones and I delay that final decision. Okay, so that's all postponement. Any questions on that? All right, keep going. Which is not a logistics. Seemed like we missed our leaderboard. Maybe I hit it too many times. Which is not a logistics function. All right, good. Competitive bidding is a sourcing function. Everything else on this board is a logistics function. All right, Stephen M. moving up there. Types of distribution. All right, very good. Obviously, you guys got that one down. 2 big buckets direct to the customer and everything else using those intermediaries. All right, Vicus holding steady. Stephen M. in the second place. Ashland's up there too. All right, good. Think hard about this one. Okay, a little bit across. This is a tougher question. So they're not the same. Otherwise, they'd be called the same thing. One is not a marketing term. So these over here are just kind of throw away. So let's focus between these two. The word production comes from the word product. So that's half of what operations is products. The other half of what operations is the other half of what value. Sorry about that. Lost my connection. I'm back. See if I can get my stuff back up here. I think I lost my daggone. I think I lost my Kahoot too when I lost connection. You got to be kidding me. Awesome. Man. Well, that's Murphy again. I lost the whole Kahoot connection. Let's see if I can try to pull it back up real quick. We're having so much fun. All right, let's see how quickly can we get back on that horse. Sorry about that. Just my stuff crapped out. All right, we're obviously not going to play the whole thing again. We'll just fast forward to where we were. All right, because we got to gain ground. I'm going to step on it a little bit. Apologize for that. I appreciate your patience. Wonder if there's a way I can just skip ahead to where we were. Probably not. There probably is, but I just don't know how to do it. I know this is painful. Sorry. It's painful for me too.
This is great. This is wonderful.
Bikers is like, dude, I had this thing locked up. Are you kidding me?
No, my ancestry got busted.
Just consider it a warm up.
Wednesday's all that matters.
There you go. That's a good spirit. We did that one. Types of distribution. We did this one. Okay, I think this is where we were. All right, here we go. And to keep things moving, I'm just going to cut it at 20 seconds. So once that purple hits 40, whether you've answered or not, we're moving. So get your answer in quickly. All right, good job. Remember, yeah, so the rest of these aren't modes of transportation. All right. Hannah. All right. People have gotten mad at me for asking this question. Actually, just one person. Yeah, I would have missed it too. But I know it's not Vince Neil or Brett Michaels. It's Axl Rose, but he goes by William Bruce. All right. Who cares? All right. Kyle, I thought you would have made it on the board on that one. All right. What is the supply chain and risk hedging? Remember, we talked about this. Think about where it is in those quadrants. All right. So it's up there. Supplier uncertainty is the name of the game with risk hedging. We're not really sure if our apples from China are going to come in because they have to come such a long way. Pariah was the risky supplier in the group exercise that we had. So some change. Stephen back up on the board. All right. So customer fulfillment pulls and sends the item. The whole idea between customer fulfillment is that it's more of a distribution function than just warehousing. Okay. Couple more. Strength of a product layout. Okay, very good. Efficiency. Remember, product layout is like Toyota, like we're pumping out cars every day, and so we get a lot of efficiency. Marshall taking a lead. What's the goal of an efficient supply chain? Remember where that sits on our quadrants of uncertainty. Okay, the whole point of the efficient supply chain is because we have such low uncertainty, both with demand and supply, that we should be driving down cost. Okay, and these are some fancy ways to do it, or we just focus on driving down costs and everything that we're doing. Okay, Nick moving up. Difference between wholesaler and distributor. We talked about this earlier today. Think about it.
It's not moving on to the next question for us.
Okay.
Oh, wait, there it goes.
You guys see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just let it roll.
I just got booted from it.
It's because you were doing so well.
All right. I guess I'll just watch.
Yeah. Remember that big pipe wholesaler buys in bulk, distributor does not. All right, we'll finish this out. I'm sorry for folks who got kicked off. Marshall's not sorry. All right. Types of challenges responsive faces. Think of where the responsive supply chain is. It's not the agile supply chain. Okay, not knowing where demand is going to occur. So the responsive supply chain is responsive because it has suppliers down. It has certainty there. So it can respond to where demand is going to be. But at the same time, that's a challenge because it doesn't know where demand is going to be. Nick moving way up there. Go for it, man. Here we go. Tough one. Oh, these last ones have 20 seconds apiece. So get your answers in always as fast and correctly as you can. Okay, again, economies of scale is all about maxing out the space. Okay. We don't want to insure less than truckload. That'd be the opposite of that. And then this up here is the opposite of economies of scale. Okay. All right, folks, moving up. 4 more, including this one. 3 different types of customers. All right, remember the end user or individual, and then we could have an organization. So like a college, okay, that represents a bunch of people, and then a tier of the supply chain. So a manufacturer is a customer of a supplier. A retailer might be a customer of a manufacturer, so on and so forth. All right, 2 factors, cellular layout tries to balance. Okay, remember that flexibility and efficiency. The cellular layout's trying to go for that ultimate compromise between the process layout that has a lot of flexibility and the product layout that has a lot of efficiency. Okay. Owen, going for it. 5 correct answers in a row. I think we have 2 more. Yep. Oh, no, I'm about to lose. Please hang on. No, stay with me. All right. Remember the fixed layout, the product is the layout itself. So like the plane, construction on a building, a ship, all these big things that it doesn't move. We bring labor and resources to it. You really want to focus on this one. And then the last question, let's see who we have up here. All right, here we go.
I just got kicked out of the game.
Ah, you gotta be kidding me.
Same here.
Cheated. All right, let's see. So Nick Savelson is in third place. Owen in second. Who do we think the first one's going to be? Marshall it is. All right, so 3, 2, 1 extra credit points. And I appreciate you guys bearing with me through that and getting kicked out and things like that. Let's stop that. Okay, any questions about anything that we did or didn't talk about? Has to do with the exam? Anything else at all?
Do we have to zoom in to the class on Wednesday, or only if you have a question?
Yeah, so the question is, do you have to zoom in? And the answer is no. Okay. You
Okay.
download the exam, you put your best effort into the exam, you focus on that. If I don't hear from anybody, then I'm a happy camper. But some other students have said, hey, we like when you're there and you can answer questions. So that's why we'll be there up on Zoom. Okay. Does that answer your question, Nick?
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
I have a question.
Okay. What's up, Jacob?
Oh, sorry, you can't see me.
Yep.
So the test. Sorry, my camera's messed up. So the test starts at 2:50 and it's over at 4:50, right?
Yep.
Okay, and that's Wednesday.
Yes.
Okay, because earlier you said it was tomorrow, and I was like, wait, what?
I apologize. It's not tomorrow.
Okay.
It's Wednesday during our normal class time. I'm opening
All
it.
right.
I'm opening it early and I'm closing it later so that you can choose where you can have a little bit of choice in that side of that window.
Sure. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So you don't have to, if you download it at 2:50 and you're done at whatever time, you don't have to wait until 4:50 to upload it. At 4:50, it'll close though. So I apologize if I said it was tomorrow. Thanks for that question. What else? Other questions? Big, small, anything? Okay. We can go ahead and drop off now. I will stay until everybody clears. If you have a question you want to ask, I'll hang around until the last person's gone. I will post this recording and let you know where it is if you want to look at it. I will also post the link to the Kahoot. You guys have a good day, and we'll see you, or we won't see you on Wednesday, but you know what to do. Take care.